Ah, Phelps. I was just discussing with Finbar here how well you were doing. Have a seat.
Yeah, it's my real name. And you can just forget all about it.
You boys have a new case. A poor Hispanic woman murdered near City Hall and left lying naked in an alleyway.
Another naked woman, sir?
Yes. We seem to have had quite a run of them since the Dahlia fiend first struck.
Phelps is politely trying to hint that he thinks the Mendez case is hokey.
Well, young Phelps, you win some and you lose some in police work.
You're happy with the Mueller case, sir?
Over the moon, boys! The DA couldn't be more pleased with the evidence, the witness, and the lack of an alibi. Now, get out there and catch me another sinner.
Seems to me like evidence, witness, and lack of an alibi are more important than the truth, as far as the captain's concerned. Though, part of me thinks that he's just posturing here. These apparently copycat murders are clearly disturbing him. But now it's up to Cole, Phelps, and Galloway to piece together this puzzle to get the right person behind bars.
You have the address?
It's the alley off Aliso between Los Angeles and Alameda.
You're kidding. The next one will be opposite Central Station.
Count yourself lucky, Phelps. Most guys would kill to land a case so close to their desk.
Yeah, it means they can pop in to hit the office supply of hooch whenever they need it.
You know, that ain't a bad idea. That is not a bad idea at all, Phelps.
I think they're starting to like working with each other. Cole and Galloway arrive at the crime scene at 1:00 p.m.
Detectives, they're ready to start the show. I'll take you through.
We don't know where this woman was killed, but her body lies in an alleyway. Ever-trustworthy Carruthers is already on the scene.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
Carruthers, Pinker?
Cause of death is pretty apparent. We thought we'd best wait for you. When you're ready.
Examining the head first, we see deep cuts on the neck and right cheek.
The lacerations on the neck would indicate a great deal of force.
Did the murderer just dress her up this way for kicks? Or did he cause these wounds during some sort of struggle? In her right hand, Cole finds a piece of paper.
Only 21 years old. But why the library card? Did he want us to find it?
Public Library, something Antonia, Hill Street. All the important information is cut off. We know her birth date and her first name, that's it. But this was clearly planted. Her corpse is naked except for this note in her hand. The only way it could be here is if the murderer put it here. Next, inspecting her belly.
Kiss the blood, BD.
Kiss the blood, BD, Black Dahlia, but kiss the blood? The same phrase we found last time. It could be a reference to the 1948 film Kiss the Blood Off My Hands, which was film noir. That story was about a former soldier who became a prisoner of war, but when he came back home, he had changed into an unstable and violent man. Is the killer hinting that he may be a war veteran? And inspecting her left hand...
Another wedding ring torn from the finger. No skin under the fingernails.
God, and the skin is stripped right off. But here we find another married woman. If this was the same killer, he has specific tastes.
The evidence in the Mueller case was solid. I'm not convinced about Mendez.
The best way to get away with murder is to pin it on somebody else. I'll bet a month's salary this is a copycat.
Strangled, battered.
Yeah. We know the M.O. So does every jerk who kills his wife and girlfriend looking for a way out. I've spoken to Brown. He still believes the Dahlia perp has medical experience.
4 women, all murdered, all put on display, all with messages.
Mueller had no message. Look, Phelps, this is getting us nowhere.
Anything for us to go on, Mal?
Head injuries from contact with road, bruising from a small man's shoe, further blunt force trauma to the occipital region at the base of the skull. Could have been fatal, but clear signs of strangulation would seem to rule it out.
Lipstick appears to be a similar color to the other cases. I'll see if I can nail down a brand.
A small man's shoe. How many size 8s are there in Los Angeles? Next, we can begin to explore the crime scene. Heading towards evidence marker A.
If she took a blow to the head like the others, she was probably unconscious when strangled.
and it looks like this stocking may be what she was strangled with. Otherwise, hard to account for all the blood on her leg. But from here, we see a trail of blood moving over towards evidence marker C.
May as well follow the trail.
We see that the trail leads over towards some boxes. Galloway is already on the scene. Let's see what he's found.
Phelps, you'll want to come and take a look at this.
A woman's bloodied hat, and on the inside liner,
Antonia. Huh, same as the library card.
we see blood spattered on a nearby door. It appears our murderer is channeling his inner Van Gogh. He's painting a trail for us to follow with his victim's blood. Turning around, we see that the trail passes between these two buildings, then twists around before stopping at a garbage can. Inside the garbage can,
Proximity to the scene, plus the bloodstains. No way is this coincidence.
woman's shoe spattered in blood. The trail continues. Off in the distance, we see something glinting on a pipe. As we get closer, we see that it's a key.
House keys, strung up like bait on a hook.
Key with the number 5 on it.
You think he's trying to lead us somewhere? Probably all the way to City Hall, that brazy son of a bitch.
The trail continues towards the road, where it pauses on the ground and we find a note.
That's got to be a code or a cipher.
They almost look like dice. 2, 5, 3. The trail then crosses the alley and ends at a fire escape ladder.
Where are you taking
All
us?
these cops. It's gotta be something big, right?
There's only one way to find out, and that's to go up. On the rooftop, we find pigeons eating birdseed amidst the trail of blood. The trail leads us through the birdcage, where on a bench, we find an envelope addressed to Mrs. A. Maldonado. But the envelope is empty.
Empty. Where is all of this meant to be taking us? Clearly wants us to find these things. He's left them for us.
There you go, Phelps. You got a new M.O. I told you it wasn't our guy.
Or he might just be getting more confident.
Out of the birdhouse, the trail hops over this roof and onto the roof of a nearby building. Following the trail, in the middle of the roof, we find something gleaming.
Enameled and gold-plated. This was precious to her.
Antonia's gold-plated makeup kit. Continuing along, the trail leads us to yet another pipe.
The trail points up.
Climbing up, we see something sparkle hanging from a nearby vent.
Pulled from the finger and hung up here. What's the significance?
And there's her wedding ring, still covered in her blood. The trail continues to the rooftop of another building, and here we find Van Gogh's tools.
Looks as though the killer was decorating with this.
Next to the can filled with blood, at the corner of the building, we find a purse. And inside,
Son of a bitch wants her identified. Mrs. Antonia Maldonado, 712 North Hill Street, downtown.
Antonia Maldonado. So the envelope in the birdhouse belonged to the victim, but it was empty. What was inside? Back on the ground, and now that we have her address, we can make our way to Antonia's house.
It was Mrs. Maldonado, right?
That's affirmative.
All right, so then there's a husband we should be looking for. Get him, we've closed the case.
Rusty's razor, of course. I don't want to question your tried and tested techniques, Detective Galloway. But doesn't the DA require sound casework before he'll close the book?
Not if he's got a confession. And, there's ways of getting those.
I'm sure.
Arriving at 1:11 p.m., we see that Antonia lived at a ladies' boarding house, Parsons' boarding house.
Wait just a moment. I'm sorry. Can I help you?
LAPD, ma'am. Detective Phelps and Galloway. Does Mrs. Maldonado live here?
Yes, she does. I'm Mrs. Barbara LaPente, the owner of this boarding house. Is there a problem?
I'm afraid so, ma'am. Do you mind if we come in? Is there somewhere we can discuss this?
Of course. Follow me through to the parlor. Wipe your feet as you come in, detectives. It's this way.
Mrs. Maldonado was found dead this morning.
Dead? Oh, no. She can't be.
I'm afraid she was murdered, ma'am. We need to take a look at her things.
I can't believe it. A person seems so alive, and then they're gone. Antonia's room is upstairs, last door on the left.
Thank you. We'll be back shortly.
Excuse us a moment, ma'am.
Upstairs, last door on the left. She didn't tell us, but let me guess. Is she in room number 5? Sure enough, the key matches.
Will you look at that? Someone's turned the place over.
And someone has beat us here. But did they arrive before or after she was murdered?
The smashed window explains why the place looks tossed.
If before, what, to kidnap her? If after, to retrieve what exactly?
You know how I feel about windows, Phelps.
Heading outside to the landing, we find the object likely used to smash the window.
So someone broke in using this thing instead of a crowbar. Wonder where it was taken from.
It appears to be some sort of, maybe part of a fence? Heading back inside, we can continue our exploration. We find an open suitcase on the bed. Where were you going, Antonia? And lying on her clothes in the suitcase is another envelope, but this one still has its contents. Mrs. Antonia Isabel Maldonado. Antonia. Further to my previous correspondence of August 7th, I'm writing to inform you that your petition to the Superior Court of the State of California has been accepted and a court date scheduled. Your case, docket number 98765, will be heard on September 17th. I am told that your husband, Angel Christopher Maldonado, residing at 304-330 North Hill Street, Los Angeles, California, has been served with the official papers and is on notice to appear at the Central District Court on the above date.
Okay, we have an address.
Though it is not essential, and many women in your position choose not to do so, I would advise you to also appear at the Central District Court on the scheduled date. In my experience, a woman plaintiff's presence in cases like this one can do much to influence proceedings. And if your husband does not appear on September 17th, which you have told me is likely, then it can only help our chances. Yours sincerely, Frederick D. Tattersall, LLB JD. So, trouble with the spouse. If we're dealing with the same murderer, he picks his victims well. All married and all having marital difficulty. But if it's not the same killer, then we've found a likely suspect. We need to find her husband, Angel. Moving to the dresser, we find a framed photograph tossed casually into the top drawer.
The charm bracelet wasn't among the crime scene evidence.
No, it wasn't. And we don't find it here. It's not on top of the dresser, it's not on the floor. Did she throw it away, or was it taken? Heading back downstairs, we can interview the landlady.
We have some questions, ma'am, if you're up to it.
Yes, detective. I'll do my best.
Do you have any idea who might have wanted to hurt Mrs. Maldonado?
That rat of her husband, Angel. She was serving him divorce papers.
If I killed every wife to serve me papers, I'd be a mass murderer.
Are you being flippant, young man?
No, ma'am.
That put Galloway in his place. Barbara LaPente here is sitting up straight, meeting Cole's gaze and looking confident. She clearly believes what she's saying, and therefore we have no reason to doubt that she's telling the truth.
What can you tell us about Angel Maldonado?
She married him when she was 17. He was cruel to her, very cruel. She was a good girl, little on the religious side, but a good girl.
Sounds like Barbara and Antonia have chatted about her personal life. Maybe she can tell us the last time she saw Antonia.
What time did Antonia go out yesterday?
She left around 9.
Do you know where she went?
No, I have no idea. She was a good girl, but she didn't confide in me.
She doesn't confide in her, and yet she knows all about her horrible husband? How exactly would she learn that if Antonia didn't confide in her? Her response was slow and carefully thought out, and now she sits here with a completely different countenance. She's slightly slumped over, looking down, not meeting Cole's eyes. She's wearing a frown. She'll briefly look up to meet eyes with Cole and then look down again, as if she was a flickering flame, staring into the wind, afraid of being blown out. We don't have any evidence that she's lying to us, but we have every indication that she's holding something back, and so we can doubt her story.
A nosy old hag like you knows everything about the people who live under her roof. Where did she go?
I think she went to a bar. She's been drinking quite a lot lately.
This bar have a name?
Eldorado Bar. It's a Latino place on North Los Angeles Street.
That's only a couple of blocks from where we found the body.
Nosy old hag? Was that really called for, Cole? Come on, buddy, jeez. Well, can't deny that it was effective in this case. But this does help explain how she knows so much about Antonia. If Antonia never confides in her, she must listen at doors. Next, we can ask her if she knows anything about the break-in.
You've had a break-in?
No, that can't be true.
Yes, that is indeed true, and I think she knows it. That feigned shock was just a bit over the top. And she sits here, holding her heart as if recovering from such news. But her face gives her away. She again can't meet Cole's eyes, and she wears that nervous scowl. Also, it would be impossible for a woman who spends all her time in her house to not have heard the glass shatter. So we know she's lying.
You're being economical with the truth, Mrs. Lepenti. What do you have to hide?
I have no idea what you are talking about.
To prove that she is lying, we can mention either the broken window, which had to make a noise, or the iron picket, which, after breaking the window, likely wasn't gingerly set down.
So Antonia lost her keys and used an iron bar to jimmy the back window?
I heard a noise in the early hours of the morning. I thought it might be a raccoon at the milk bottles. It'd be very bad for business if this news got out. I have a reputation to protect.
I see. Well, that does make sense. It's a legitimate reason for lying, but she gives us an important clue. The window was broken after the murder. Antonia's body has been lying in the street all night, but she said that the window wasn't broken until this morning. Someone came back to her room for something. Someone who did not have the key we found in the street. But since she listens at doors and likely peers through keyholes, we can ask her if she knows anything more about the breakdown of Antonia's marriage.
Antonia and her husband were estranged?
Yes. She moved here after she separated from her husband 2 months ago.
But Antonia still wore a wedding ring?
She wore the wedding ring and a necklace. She always wore a religious necklace. That's about all of her jewelry.
That's an odd thing to append to the end of her sentence. All we asked about was the wedding ring. She then went on to list all the jewelry she knew about, but Cole didn't ask about that, and then on her own provided that she didn't have any more jewelry. Again, answering a question we didn't ask. Why would she do that? And now she sits here wearing a bizarre expression. It's smug, as if she's holding onto some great secret, or that she's terribly proud with how tricky she is. She clearly thinks she's clever, but we know that she's lying to us.
What about her bracelet?
I don't know anything about a bracelet.
She went out of her way to tell us that that's all the jewelry Antonia had, but we found a picture in her room of her wearing a charm bracelet.
In her wedding photo, she's displaying a charm bracelet.
That thing? She never wore it. He gave it to her. She always kept it in that wooden jewelry box.
Thanks, ma'am. You've been very helpful.
Pay a call to that husband of hers. Lock him up and throw away the key.
We can either front Angel, seeing as the finger's pointing right at him, or we could check out the Eldorado Bar.
She always kept it in a wooden jewelry box. I went back up into her bedroom to see if I could find this jewelry box, but after turning the place upside down, we don't find the wooden jewelry box and we don't find the bracelet. And if she never wore it, that can only mean that whoever broke into this room in the early hours of the morning came here to retrieve that bracelet. Now, we just need to learn why. And we have a couple of options. We could go to the Eldorado Bar or to the Maldonado residence. I'm itching to have a chat with Angel, so we'll head to the Maldonado residence.
A nosy old hag? Ha! And I thought I was coming on strong with the ex-wives line.
Sometimes you have to be firm to get the information you need.
God damn it, ain't that the truth?
I'm glad I'm not the only one who thought that was an interesting remark from Cole. We arrive at the apartment at 1:26 p.m., taking a look at the mailbox to find the number.
He's good looking for a policeman.
Maldonado is in apartment 304.
Oh, great, third floor, and of course no elevator. Racing up 3 flights of stairs, we arrive at the 3rd floor. But Finbar here decides to take lead.
Phelps, this could turn ugly. Forget about knocking. Let's take our boy by surprise.
Hey, what the fuck?
LAPD, motherfucker, you're under arrest.
And Finbar goes down, pounced upon by a man hiding in the kitchen. Cole and the assailant have at it, toe-to-toe in a round of fisticuffs. But Cole pins the man in a corner, and his relentless Marine Corps training wins the day.
Damn, they got some decent shots in there. Cuff these sons of bitches, Phelps.
LAPD, you two are under arrest. Call for some backup, Finbar.
Poor Galloway.
Galloway, badge number 564. I need a prowl car at the apartment building 330 North Hill Street. 2 suspects need transporting to Central.
Your wife has been murdered, Angel.
Antonia? Oh, God, no!
Where were you last night, Angel?
I was here with my brother the whole night, goddammit! You think I'd kill my own wife?
And we have to admit, his shock, if it was feigned, was much more convincing than Barbara's.
We should get the whole place going over, then talk to the neighbors.
With Angel and his brother gone, we can explore their apartment.
And Phelps, I don't care that you just got smacked in the head. You don't call me Finbar.
I love it. We'll start by going to the kitchen and taking a look at the floor.
Just picked fruit market.
And we find some fruit of the vine.
I wonder if Angel gets all his groceries from this place.
Cognac, to be precise. But cognac's not illegal. Why would he be hiding it in a box? Perhaps it was just delivered, but delivered from a fruit market? Near to the refrigerator, we find a piece of incriminating evidence.
This will take some explaining.
Indeed it will. I sure hope he doesn't tell me he cut himself shaving.
Maybe one of the neighbors took notice of Angel's movements. He's got no alibi. He's toast.
Before we go canvassing the neighbors, we can take a look at a matchbook we find lying on a kitchen counter.
The Eldorado must be a family favorite.
So we know Antonia went there, and her husband has matches from there. And only 2 matches are gone. He must have visited them recently. Now to canvass the neighbors. Heading outside, we'll knock on the door of every resident here on floor 3, starting with 305.
What do you want?
LAPD, we're making some inquiries.
Make it quick. I work nights.
So you weren't home last night?
No, I was at work.
You know nothing about Mrs. Maldonado fighting with her husband?
Those two? They're always screaming the place down.
Thanks.
So, arguing was not an uncommon thing in this household. Moving over to 303.
No good. There's nobody here.
So, moving over to 301.
Hey, sorry about that. I'm playing with my kid.
LAPD, were you here last night?
Yeah. My wife and I are separated, and I had the kids last night. I put them to bed early and went to bed myself.
Thanks.
And the last room on this floor is 302.
Hello?
LAPD, ma'am. Did you hear a disturbance last night?
Yes. Yes, I did. Mrs. Maldonado lit out of here, and her husband ran out after her.
You saw this, Miss?
Aranda. I had the door open a crack.
Did you see Mr. Maldonado come back inside after he ran out?
No. I didn't.
Thanks. We'll be in touch.
I kept thinking you were going to call that one a nosy old hag too, Phelps. Well-executed restraint.
I'm executing restraint right now, Finbar.
The hired help at the Eldorado might have seen the broad the night she died. Maybe the regulars, too. We should check it out.
The Eldorado Bar is the only lead we have left, so heading back down to the parking lot, we can hop in the car to head that way.
Car 11K, Car 11 King, come in.
KGPL, 11 King, over.
11K, Captain Donnelly and Detective Sergeant Finis Brown urgently request your presence at Central. A new letter has been found.
11K, en route.
Or not. Change of plan. Instead, we'll head to the Central Police Station, and we arrive at 1:36 p.m.
The captain is waiting for you downstairs with Pinker.
Downstairs with Pinker. To head downstairs, we go down the hallway past interview room 2, and then down the staircase in the adjoining room. Here in the basement, we find the door to technical services.
Boys, come on in. Phelps, have you met Finis Brown?
Pleased to meet you, sir.
This information is confidential and doesn't leave this room.
The new letter was left in the back seat of a cab. The driver thinks it was put through the window and not left by a customer.
We're checking all this fares back 24 hours regardless.
Good.
Like the previous letters, it's been assembled from headlines and typed from the Times and Examiner, then glued to an envelope.
What is the other note?
This one? That's also new. A poem, hand-typed.
Do you mind if I take a look?
Go ahead. We've been over both documents pretty carefully. They've been wiped with gasoline, so there's no chance of prints.
Peering closer.
What on earth is that man doing?
That's the message from the Celine Henry case.
Well, a part of the message. We recall from the red lipstick murder that on the corpse was written in lipstick, FUBD Tax. Now we learn that that message was the last part of this one. Have changed my mind, you would not give square deal. FUBD Tax. So, if this really does come from the Black Dahlia serial murderer, he wrote the final line of a letter he received from someone named Tex in lipstick on the belly of Celine Henry. So, presumably the Dahlia murderer was working with someone named Tex, but wouldn't give him a square deal. Does that mean there is more than one killer? But this note tells a separate story if we add it to the facts from the real Black Dahlia case, the murder of Elizabeth Short. Remember, the Black Dahlia murders we're exploring here in LA Noire were inspired by the real-life Black Dahlia killer. The police hunted him for years and never found him, but he sent letters just like this to the police and to newspapers. In one of the letters, also made from cut-up newspaper, he said, "I will give up in Dahlia killing if I get 10 years. Don't try to find me." Then, much later, the real Dahlia killer sent another one saying, "I have changed my mind. You would not give me a square deal. The Dahlia killing was justified." So, presumably he was taking back his offer to turn himself in if he only gets 10 years. This one that we find in the game mirrors the one from the real world, with one slight alteration. Instead of claiming that the Dahlia killing was justified, this killer says FUBD Tex. Perhaps he was referring to Elizabeth Short. After all, the real murderer said that the Dahlia killing was justified, as if he was saying that Elizabeth Short deserved it. Similarly, the killer in the game is saying F-U-B-D. The medium named Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia. So maybe the killer is saying F-U to Elizabeth Short. If that's the case, then he's signing this note Tex, which means the real killer's name is Tex, or that's what he's calling himself. But is it fair to bring in the real notes from the real killings to solve the mystery in the game? Or should we just go on the evidence that we find in the game? And next to this one, we find the second note.
Heap upon thy soul by virtue of this curse.
Ill deeds, then be thou damned, beholding good, both infinite as is the universe, and thou, and thy self-torturing solitude. An awful image of calm power, though now thou sittest, let the hour come when thou must appear to be that which thou art internally. And after many a false and fruitless crime, scorn track thy lagging fall through boundless space and time.
That's why we called you in.
Do you think it's original?
Not unless he's a genius.
You like this nutjob's poem?
No, I like Shelley. It was written at least 100 years ago.
Shelley? Sure, I knew that.
You see, Finnis? I told you this lad was a bright boy.
Sure, but what has it got to do with the case?
Prometheus Unbound. Prometheus was a titan, a superhuman character who defied the gods to bring fire to humanity.
The Dahlia guy believes he's Superman.
Your guess is as good as mine. One thing for sure is that he's educated. What about the link to the Henry case?
He could have got the wording from the papers. As you said, he is fiendishly clever and takes pleasure in taunting us. What's happening with the Maldonado case?
We have the husband in custody. We haven't interviewed him yet.
Well, upstairs then, lads, and see if we can break him.
Well, looks like we'll have to postpone going to the bar. The captain wants us to interview the suspect, and interview the suspect we shall. Heading back upstairs, we can find Angel in interview room 2.
Improved your attitude, Angel?
What do you want me to say? I was with Antonia the night she died, but she left the apartment, and that was the last time I saw her.
So Antonia visited him at his apartment. Interesting. Maybe he can tell us more about that.
So your wife paid you a visit last night. What time was that?
Late, around midnight, maybe? She didn't stay long.
Uh-oh. And we already catch this guy in a lie. Not only is he betraying himself by adopting an odd body posture, crossing his arms, elbows high up at his pecs, looking confused and squinting a lot.
Quit staring at me like that.
We have evidence that he's lying.
You're lying, Angel. You went after her. I think you killed her.
You're out of your mind. My brother will tell you I was at home.
And the evidence we have is the story we heard from the neighbor.
We have a witness who confirms that you were arguing, that your wife ran out, that you followed her and didn't come back.
I know this looks bad, but it's not true. We argued, all right? But she went out and I went out after her and she jumped in a car on the corner.
There was a car waiting for her? Can you describe the driver?
Not the driver. It was too dark. But the car, it was a brown Ford coupe.
So she was with someone, and he is able to identify the car, a brown Ford coupe. We'll have to keep that in mind, but we'll know that Angel has motive for murder if he knew that his wife was divorcing him.
You and your wife weren't getting along. She was divorcing you. Is that why you killed her?
We fought, yeah, but we weren't getting a divorce.
Well, he's either lying or he doesn't know about the divorce yet, but I think the former is more likely since they were arguing. And it's likely they were arguing about the divorce. Plus, he sits here looking nervous and insecure. And also because we have a letter from her attorney where we learn that Angel here knows the court date for the divorce hearings.
I don't believe you, Angel. She'd been granted a decree nisi. She pushed you too far and you lashed out.
I told you. I wouldn't accept a divorce.
And to prove that he's lying, we can point to the attorney's letter.
The judge had set a date. You were going to be paraded in front of the whole city for your cruelty to her, Angel.
Antonia. Oh, Jesus. She came in drunk, out of her mind. She doesn't normally drink. She was looking around in her bag. Said she wanted to serve me papers. Me, her own husband. So I slapped her down. She ran out. That's the truth.
What size shoe do you wear, Angel?
Size 8. What difference does that make?
Ooh, so he is violent and wears size 8s, just like every other man we've arrested for these murders. If the Black Dahlia killer is really one person doing all of these murders, man, he picks his victims well.
When we found your wife, her jewelry had been removed. Was she wearing her religious medallion last night?
Sure. She always wore that.
All right, well, we have no reason to doubt this guy. He still has his arms crossed, but his countenance is much different. He seems more scared and preoccupied than dishonest, though he does have a twitchy eye. He's looking a little fragile. Maybe we can coax him into talking more by playing the good cop.
What about the charm bracelet? Was she wearing that?
You know about that? She never wore it. She didn't like the message. She kept it locked up in that box of hers.
And here we have corroboration that she kept the bracelet in the box that's now missing. But then we've got that bloody shirt to deal with.
Your wife has been brutally murdered. So how do you explain your shirt being covered in blood?
You found that? I cut myself shaving.
Oh, he didn't, did he? He did, didn't he? Cut myself shaving. There was blood on his sleeve dripping down his shirt, and he cut himself shaving. Even though he's making direct, if twitchy, eye contact with Cole, his unbelievable explanation causes us to doubt that he's telling us the whole story.
Angel, I'm not going to waste any more time on this. Give me something, or I'm going to have you charged.
My brother, Ippolito, he said some bad things about Antonia last night. So I had to sock him one. We got into it.
Keep talking.
She said she came from the Eldorado Bar.
And?
It's not one of my places. We used to buy fruit at the market down the street. But the creep there was always running his eyes all over my wife.
What's the name of this fruit market?
Just picked fruit. Ord Street downtown.
One last question, Angel. Do the words kiss the blood mean anything to you?
No. Sounds sick to me.
You're not in the clear by any means, Angel. You're going back into a cell. You should think about whether you have anything else you need to share with us.
Fruit market. Could that be the same fruit market that sells cognac in crates? And if the Eldorado isn't one of his places, as he says, his wife must have brought the matches with her when she arrived after having left the bar. Certainly plausible, but we really didn't get the information we needed to put him away. Instead, we just got more questions. To answer these questions, we've got to head to the Eldorado Bar.
You don't think it's strange that all these murders are happening to girls who've been out drinking?
No. A broad drinks, she gets a bit tight, she starts mouthing off. This leads to that, and she ends up in an alleyway. It's a sad story, but this town's seen it play out 1,000 times, Cole.
Why don't you want to see a connection here?
Because there are perfectly good real-life suspects for every one of these murders. We don't need to go looking for the monster under the bed.
Wait a minute, Cole's right. Every single naked murdered woman we've found has been out drinking. Red lipstick murder, Celine Henry, last seen at the Bomba Club. Then, of course, this murder, Antonia Maldonado, recently seen at the Eldorado, arriving drunk to her husband's house. But wait a minute. In the Golden Butterfly murder, we didn't get any evidence that Deirdre Muller had been out drinking. Though, if her husband is innocent in her murder, she did bump into someone late at night before she was supposed to pick up her daughter from the high school dance, and the most likely place she would have been to bump into a stranger would have been a bar. So perhaps Deirdre, too, went to a bar. Is it really as simple as Galloway says? And drunk women are just easy targets? Or is there a connection?
What can I get you?
LAPD. Detectives Phelps and Galloway.
Diego Aguilar. How can I help?
You worked the bar last night?
Yeah. Being a temp guy from the agency.
Did you have a woman in here last night? 21 years old, Hispanic, drinking heavily?
We have a lot of ladies like that in here. But yeah, I know who you mean. Antonia Maldonado. So what did she do?
She was murdered last night.
Oh, shit.
Do you know her well? Was she a regular?
Hell no. She was good and tight last night, complaining about her old man. It's a story you get used to working in a bar. She was so hammered last night, she left a letter on the bar. I'll show you.
To Angel Maldonado, delivered by hand.
A waitress. Can I have another spoon?
Subpoena in divorce. Antonia versus Angel.
How's your tuna fish salad?
Divorce papers. Did you open them?
No need to. She was shouting about it and waving the letter around. Said she was going to show him.
So she served him with papers, and she wanted a divorce on the grounds of cruelty. But she left this at the bar. When she got to Angel's house, she realized she left it behind, so she never actually had an opportunity to serve him with the papers. Maybe the barkeep here can tell us about her missing jewelry.
Can you remember what jewelry she was wearing?
She had a necklace. Some kind of religious thing, I think. The temp guy would have more of an idea. She took the beer he served her and cried into it all night.
What time did she leave?
Can't say for sure.
Well, too bad we can't talk with this temp guy. He seems to have all the answers, though he correctly identified the medallion, seemed to know all about their divorce, and yet he has no idea what time she left that night. Some fishy about that. He's shifting his weight, and his head bobs up and down, and he's squinting at Cole Phelps, pursing his lips. He's trying to decide how to handle Cole Phelps, and you only have to think about it if you're not telling the whole truth, so we can doubt his story.
Where did she go? Give me something or the LAPD will start getting interested in this place.
Take it easy. She wanted a cab, okay? And my phone was out of order. The closest one I knew was at the fruit market across the street, so I suggested she try there. She seemed reluctant.
Again with the fruit market. We'll have to stop by. And we know why she was reluctant to go over there, if her husband can be believed. The man working at the fruit market was constantly eyeing her.
Did Antonia say where she was going when she left?
She said she was going to serve the papers on the husband. Said that would take the smile off his face. If you ask me, she was scared. And the drink was for Dutch courage.
His countenance here is very different. He does still shift his weight a lot. Perhaps he's just a fidgety guy. But his head no longer bobs, and he fixes his gaze on Cole Phelps. He must be telling the truth.
She attract any interest?
An extremely drunk young woman? What do you think? She managed to scare them off, though.
Thanks. You've been a big help.
No problem. Hey, get the guy, will you?
We'll do our best. One last question. What size shoe do you take, Mr. Aguilar?
A broad 9. I have wide feet.
Well, a broad 9 doesn't match. But our trail leads us to the nearby fruit market. Maybe we can spot it if we head out the back door.
Goddamn waitress.
Sir, do you work here?
Sorry, pal, just making deliveries.
From where?
Just Pig Fruit Market across the street.
A fruit market delivers here?
Yeah, sure does. The Mexes love a little slice with their tequila.
We found a crate a lot like the ones you're wheeling there, except it was filled with booze. You know anything about that?
What? No, we deliver all over the place, officer. No telling where the boxes end up. Excuse me, I have to get on with this.
Fine, thanks.
We've made someone nervous. Turning around, we can take a look at the crates that he just delivered.
Just picked fruit market. That's where Antonia went to call for a cab last night.
Very familiar looking packaging. The bartender told us that the fruit market was just across the street. Heading out to the street, we can see if we can find it. And there it is, with a big green sign that says just picked. Heading inside, we arrive just as the fruit delivery guy gets back from his rounds.
The handbag was left just up there, overlooking the market.
Could have come here from the start and saved ourselves a day's legwork.
That's right, the handbag we found on the rooftop was right next to this marketplace. So the killer was pointing us in the right direction the entire time. But does that mean we'll find the killer here? Heading over to the front counter.
Sir, Wait, you look familiar.
Hey, from the bar, right? What brings you here?
LAPD, Detective Phelps and Galloway.
Clem Feeney. What can I do for you?
Did you happen to see a young woman last night? 21 years old, Hispanic?
Sure, she came by last night. Why do you ask?
So he delivers to the Eldorado, which means he might have been at the Eldorado the night that Antonia disappeared. And we know that he has eyes for Antonia, and he saw Antonia here the night she disappeared. This chase may be coming to an end.
She was wearing a necklace?
I didn't notice.
You weren't paying attention, Feeney?
Hey, you're getting the wrong idea.
Actually, we don't have the wrong idea. We learned from Angel that the guy at the fruit stand was constantly eyeing his wife. This is the only guy we find, so it must have been Clem. And he didn't notice a religious necklace? We don't have proof that he didn't notice it, but we have reason to doubt his story.
Exactly how much fruit do you sell here after midnight, Clem?
Look, not much. I sell the odd bottle on the side to the after-hours crowd. Look, I don't want any trouble. I'm just trying to make a buck.
So he's been bootlegging alcohol. But that doesn't make him a murderer. Perhaps he can tell us exactly how well he knows the victim.
The young lady arrived around midnight?
Yeah, something like that. Used the phone for a cab and then left.
Well, we know that what he's saying is true, at least according to what we heard from the bartender at the Eldorado. That's why he sent her here, to use the phone. But he's shifting his weight, wrinkling up the corners of his mouth, looking around and then glancing quizzically at Cole. Perhaps that's why she came here, but we have every reason that he's telling us the whole story.
You already knew Mrs. Maldonado, didn't you, Clem?
Sure, I met her before. She seemed like a nice lady. Her husband went apeshit one day when he caught me talking to her. She hadn't been back until last night.
Where did she go from here?
She wanted a cab, but I couldn't get her one. I was about to offer to drive her, but a car pulled up and she got into that.
Oh, so she came here to call a cab, but she didn't actually call a cab. Someone else picked her up? That would go along nicely with what we learned from Angel, that his wife was picked up in a brown Ford coupe. And he's not giving us any indication that he's lying. He's still shifting his weight, but he's meeting eye contact with Cole Phelps, so he must be telling the truth.
Can you describe the car?
Brown Ford coupe, I think. She seemed to know the guy.
Do you mind if we look around?
Why would you want to do that?
Because we say so.
I guess you can. Don't you have to get a court order or something? I have rights.
Clem? Shh.
Brown Ford coupe, and she knew the guy. But where could she have known him from? All we find out here in the marketplace is fruit, so we need to head to the office. Kicking open the green door.
No wonder he stays open late at night. People have to get their vitamins. Check through this stuff before we get back out there.
Ho, 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 ho. What a bootlegging operation. This is clearly how he makes his revenue. Heading to the stack in the middle of the floor. Sure enough, the very same type of cognac we found at Angel's apartment. Moving over to one of the desks, we see a filing cabinet with one of the drawers open. And inside one of the drawers we find a box. And beneath the box, a bloody shirt.
So what are we hiding in here? This thing needs a combination.
And will you look at that? It was dice. Let's see, what was the combination again? 2, 5, 3. And inside the box, we find the religious bracelet. This box was stolen out of Antonia's bedroom. But by Clem? Taking a look at the cross, Ephesians 5:12. Wives, submit to your husbands. I think we've just learned why she didn't like it. We find a Madonna and then 2 praying hands. But then, if we move to the table right next to this one, we find a bloodied knife.
I got a call back to that Universal Chorus line.
Why cut someone who was already dead?
It's a typical power thing. Once the stiff is dead, the creep usually feels they can do whatever they like. Must have seen it during the war.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe the killer needed a bloody knife so he could plant it in a room and frame someone. Always possible.
This fruit stall punk gets about 10 seconds to explain before I pull his fucking arms off.
Clem!
And Clem books it. He hops into his GMC truck and takes off down the road.
God damn it, get after him, Cole!
Though we've got problems with this case just like with all of the others. Why go back to the victim's house after she's dead to steal this box? A box with a bracelet that she didn't like and never wore. Why would you do that? Why would you need that unless you needed something to frame someone else? Why would you lead detectives on a bloody trail scattered with your victim's personal belongings that ends at a rooftop overlooking the place where you do business? And why would you leave this evidence in an open drawer on top of bloody clothing? And why would you stab an already dead corpse and then leave that knife on a desk in your office? This evidence was just as convenient for us to find as the evidence for the past few cases. But we do have a suspect, and he did flee from the scene, which means we've got to get him off the road and take him into custody.
Wish me luck.
You're a sick man, Clem. You need help.
Outstanding job on this case, gentlemen. The poor woman can now rest in peace. I'll pay the fiend a personal visit myself and remind him that crime in this city does not go unpunished. When they finish with him at the receiving hospital, we'll have him up before the grand jury. I have a meeting this afternoon with the mayor lads. I'll be sure to mention your names. Now, on your way.
And the captain is a little light-fingered, but hey, it's not like Clem's gonna be drinking it anytime soon. And with that, we solve the silk stocking murder. Or do we? Even though the details of this case are so different from all of the others, it has conveniently resolved itself in much the same way. A drunk married woman killed late at night, stripped of her clothes with her ring torn off her finger, and all the evidence we need to convict the murderer conveniently planted right next to our suspect in a place that's impossible to miss. If the past few cases are any indication, then my money is on finding another dead woman in our near future. But to find out, we'll have to wait until our next episode. I publish many videos each week here on my channel, so if you don't want to miss the next episode, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. I have a shirt shop with completely unique designs you can't find anywhere else. My designs come in a variety of men's, women's, and children's sizes, and in a wide array of colors. They also come in other products as well, like smartphone cases, mugs, pillows, posters, prints, etc. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. I'm becoming more active on Twitter. I use Twitter to respond to viewers and to make channel announcements like if I have to skip a day or if a video's coming late. So if you're active on Twitter, I encourage you to follow me at Oxhorn. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with a brand new video.